Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 31. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. This show is a show for engineers and entrepreneurs to learn practical strategies on how to better express their ideas. In the land of engineering, there are going to be plenty of times that you are working on a project, but you do not exist in a silo. You exist in a complex system known as a business. So once you are done working on your project, you have to be able to clearly articulate what you worked on for the past 6 months to the different stakeholders. If you're not capable of doing that, then the stakeholders will assume that you did nothing for those past 6 months or your product doesn't work, even though it does. Therefore, for engineers, it is highly important to learn how to express your ideas. With entrepreneurs, it's virtually the same thing. Instead of working in a business, you are building a business. And this requires different skill sets within the umbrella of communication skills, such as emotional intelligence. You need to be able to keep your composure when your supplier is increasing the prices out of the blue moon so you can negotiate effectively. You need to speak in front of a scaled audience, also known as public speaking. And you need to network effectively. So when you are going to these networking events, you are not just standing in a corner. Instead, you are networking with the different people to best promote yourself. If these topics interest you, you definitely want to hit subscribe to the Armani Talks YouTube channel to stay updated with the latest episodes. Now, with that getting started, I want to talk about something that's changing in modern businesses, especially if you're a worker, because this is going to come in important, especially if you're trying to get a promotion. Nowadays, it's not just about being good in your job. Where in 2012, that was the case. If you were really good at your job, eventually you would get promoted. Nowadays, things are a little different, where you have to rely on other people a lot more to get crucial information in order to do your job. One example of this is what I call the client service account manager role. This is a person who is the middle ground between the client and the back end of their particular business. So let's say they sell the client on a particular product. The client expects the product to work great all the time. And if the product is not working great, then they hit up the client service account manager and they report the issue. And this is when the client service account manager, they'll have some troubleshooting tips. If they're capable of figuring it out themselves, they will. But other times, it's not that simple. They need to engage their back end team. And the back end team tells the client service account manager, I'm just going to call them CSAM, bad news. There is this internal bug that is occurring, and we're going to have the release for this fix, for this bug, 2 months from now. Go ahead, deliver that message. Now, the CSAM is in a weird position because he is being forced to speak about something that he doesn't know that well. He tells the client, and the client starts grilling him. The client is like, how come you guys didn't catch this earlier? Why 2 months for the release? Why can't you do it earlier? Hey, come on, man, we're still paying you full money? I don't think that's right. So now the CSAM is getting grilled. But eventually, the client accepts, look, I guess the CSAM can't do anything besides provide us timely updates. That update becomes important now. A week passes by, 2 weeks passes by, the CSAM is getting their phone lit up by the client, and the client asks, hey, what's the details? The CSAM goes to the backend services, asks them for the details, but no one is responding back. They're working on the issue, and not a single person is writing back to the emails, writing back to the ping messages, not even answering the phone calls. So the CSAM, their job is now being hindered because they are having to rely upon the back-end services, such as production management, such as the business analysts, such as the developers. And the client is just getting mad at the CSAM. By the time the CSAM's boss meets up with the client to ask the client, hey, what type of service is the CSAM providing? The client says, not good service. I mean, under his watch, there have been bugs that have been infiltrating this product. And the CSAM is getting blamed for something that he didn't even do. That is the modern workspace. And this is why there's this new phrase that has been getting popularity in the workspace. This is known as chasing. Chasing is when you have to keep on following up with these back end people to make sure that they get their job done or at least provide you some updates. If it's going to take 2 months, fine. Let it take 2 months, but at least have one person who communicates the message to the client facing individual. And it's not only for the client facing individual who needs information, it's even for the back end people. If they need information from the application developers, from the PM team, from the business analysts, and much more. And nowadays, due to different teams relying upon other teams, it has become harder than ever to get a promotion. So, what are some tips that I have for you? First, you need to introduce the term chasing in your vocabulary. When you introduce that phrase chasing, where you have to keep on following up with people to make sure the request is finally complete, when you introduce that phrase into your reality, suddenly you don't personalize when you have to chase as much. Because when I was first starting my career, I didn't have to chase that much. But later on, when I did have to chase a lot because organizations were reshifting how they did business, I was getting angry. I thought, well, why aren't these people doing their jobs? I mean, it's just professionalism to respond back to one of my emails. Why would they leave me on red? What's up with that? So when that phrase did not exist for me, I would just get angrier quicker. So that's the first tip that I have for you. Introduce the phrase chasing into your vocabulary. Now, from there, you want to alter your strategy sometimes because some people, it doesn't matter who they are, they're never going to respond back to a ping, but they will respond back to a phone call. Other people, they will never respond back to a phone call, but they will respond back to a ping. So the more that you're chasing, the more that eventually you're going to understand who you are working with. You're going to figure out the communication medium that certain people like to communicate with, and this will make your job easier. And this is what I mean. You need to get reps in chasing because you're not going to automatically know someone's communication method of choice in the beginning. So the more that you're practicing, the more that you are going to understand how these people work. Now, from there, you want to alter communication mediums if your strategies are not working. So imagine that there is a guy named Mike. Mike is someone that you need some crucial information from. You shoot him a ping, doesn't respond. You give him a call, doesn't respond. This is when you want to email him, but you don't just email him because he may be tempted to ignore you. You want to also CC his team, his supervisor, his employees. You want to CC a lot of people. And obviously, I'm being a little sarcastic. You don't want to CC his boss's boss's boss unless you have to. See, this is one thing that I learned. Don't push me. But if you do push me, then there are going to be certain moments when I may make you look a little bad for the sake of the client. And this is something that you may have to do. Uh, Hold off on this move though. Don't just immediately tag their boss's boss. Hit them up a couple of times. If they're not responding back, then you CC at least their boss. Because a lot of the times, this person that you are contacting does not know the answer. And rather than just telling you, hey, you're hitting up the wrong guy, they just leave you on red. And this is why it's smart to contact their boss to see if you could get a response back from someone. This is very important. And as you're doing this chasing process, you don't want to just be twiddling your thumbs. Like, okay, hit him up. He still hasn't responded back. Now what? I guess I can't do my job. Of course you can. There are different parts of your job that you can still work on as you are chasing. Because a lot of the times, one thing that you will notice is that you are chasing Mike for so long to eventually discover that Mike doesn't even know the answer to this issue. Instead, you have to hit up another person right now. And if you hit this other person up within the past 2 weeks, then you would have gotten the answer way sooner than relying on Mike. So you don't want to be just twiddling your thumbs. You want to get as much information as you possibly can on what you do have available right now. And this is when I want to transition from chasing to surfing the web strategically at work. You want to read anything that comes into your email inbox because the more that you read whatever, even if it doesn't pertain to you, still read it. Build that habit Because the more that you read this different content, the more that you are going to build a fluency on how to communicate with different team members. One of the most annoying things is when people are asking you questions and you're just stuck. You have no clue how to even respond back to this. And there's either dead silence or someone has to jump in and save you. That's not professional. People are going to forgive that when you are first starting your career. But if you are 6 to 8 months in and you still are like a deer in the headlights whenever people are asking you questions, they are not going to be as forgiving, even if it's not your fault. I get it. There are a lot of managers and teams that just don't train you, and you are asking them to train you, and they're always leaving you to the side. So eventually, what happens is that you just give up, but the other teams around you, they still expect you to be the subject matter expert. So when they're asking you questions and you still don't know the answers, then it makes you look bad. They don't understand how the inner workings of your team works. Instead, all they see is this dude has been here for 6 months and he still doesn't know how to properly do his job. So what you want to do is you want to read anything that you possibly can, any email, okay? The more that you read the emails, the more that you build a fluency for how to communicate at work. People make fun of corporate speak a lot, but corporate speak is there for a reason. The reason that it is there is because it creates an insulation from our real personality. A lot of the people that go to your work, they have untamed personalities in real life. If you go to a social with them, you will see them drinking nonstop, starting fights with different individuals, smoking, right? That's who they really are. Now, if they bring that sort of personality in work, do you think anything is ever going to get done? No. So they eventually adopt corporate speak in order to insulate that personality, in order to communicate their ideas in a corporate fashion. People make fun of corporate speak, but in my opinion, it's a good thing when used correctly. Every now and then you want to turn it off and speak real, but then in my opinion, you want to at least have a fluency for how to corporate speak. And this will make your life a lot easier. Rather than coming off very aggressive, people will be able to hear your message better because you are delivering it in a beautiful package. So the more emails that you're reading, the better of corporate speak that you will become fluent in. Now, from there, you want to even surf the web. You want to go on Google and do as much research on your company as you possibly can. Because your company, it is not just existing in a silo. You will see that there are a lot of articles that have been written about it. If it's a big company, chances are there are YouTube videos about it. You want to learn as much as you can from this content that you are consuming to get better perspective of your work. If you work in a big company, one thing you'll notice is that a lot of the senior management, they're going on CNBC and talking, hear their thoughts. A lot of them, they're appearing on podcast episodes. Hear it. And the more that you're hearing it, I guarantee you, you will have more context to what you are doing in the present day moment. And this increases your likelihood of getting a promotion because you are suggesting ideas that are strategic in nature. A lot of people at work, they're reactive. They'll do something once something breaks. But the smart people, what they do is they can spot things before they are about to break. If you can do that, I guarantee you the upper management, they're going to look at you and say, there's not that much noise from this person's team. That's a good thing. You don't want it to be too quiet because otherwise it doesn't seem like you're doing anything. So sometimes you want to be grateful when things do break, but you want to create these systems that are strategic in nature. And you build a strategy by hearing the upper management speak more. And you'll see the upper management speak more a lot in articles, in YouTube videos. You can go on the SharePoint and you'll see that they have a lot of resources. And if they don't have the resources, this is where you come in clutch. You suggest building a knowledge hub because this is one of the most important things. And I get it. You need to sell this idea to your manager. Here's how you sell it. You tell them, look, there is not a particular resource for our position. How about this? I will create this resource. I will put all important documents, charts, procedures in this knowledge hub. Let's just call it a SharePoint for right now. I will build this SharePoint. And the reason that it is going to add value is because number one, once we are scaling our team, they have a particular area where all the knowledge is consolidated and it will make for easier training. And two, if a team is ever confused by what we do, we just refer them to the SharePoint and they will know exactly what we do, who is in our team, our internal org structure. What do you say? Now, if this guy's a dummy, he's going to say no. But if he's smart, if he's intelligent, if he understands how business works and he says, oh, wow, this guy is taking the charge and all of this, yeah, go for it. I'll green light it. Then you just build it. And other times, you don't just want to wait for permission so much. There are going to be times where you just do something and then you explain yourself later. See, here's a little cheat code I want you to understand, especially once you are working. No mistake is that bad. Now, I want to preface this by saying it really depends on your industry. If you are a pilot and you crash your plane, the mistake is that bad. But if you work in IT, for example, if you work in finance, if you work in these places where it's growing, right, and you make some mistakes, it's not always seen as a bad thing. You think it's seen as a bad thing, but people have short term memories. Eventually, they will forget. I recall there was this one coworker that completely ruined an entire department's weekend one time because he deleted a database by accident. And what happened was people were mad at the moment, but he never got fired. Even though we lost a lot of important information, we gained some crucial insights from that debacle. We had to build our resiliency. And we always talk about Neil. Remember Neil's screw up? His screw up is the reason we built resiliency in the first place. Now, if you are Neil in this scenario, you may not like your name being associated with a screw up, but at least you helped the company grow. And this is one thing that you need to understand, especially if you want to get promoted. It's not always about you. Where when I was first starting my career, I always thought it was about me. How can I do my best in order to get promoted? But it's really about the value that you are adding. And there are different ways to add value. You need to first become valuable. And that's what the entire analyst and the associate positions are for. It's for you to actually get your hands dirty, understand how different systems work, deal with the crap, do the VPs and the executive directors' busy work for them. In that process of doing the busy work, you become smarter than everyone. That's when you become valuable. And once you become valuable, then you can start creating value for others. That's how the game works. So that's how it works with the corporate space. If you're an entrepreneur, a lot of these tips will work where you will have to chase a customer multiple times until you close the deal. When I first started Armani Talks, roughly around 2018 to 2019, I was offering free consultation services. And the reason that I was doing this was from the free consultation services, a lot of them would turn into paying clients. Well, I recall there were a lot of people that would fill out one of these free consultation forms, but they would never show up. And that's when I learned even when you give something for free to someone, you still need to follow up. So do not assume that chasing is something that you only do at your corporation. You also do it if you are starting a business. Can you start a business and work a full 40-hour-a-week job at the same time? I think the answer is yes, but it really depends on what type of business you are starting. I want to actually talk about a different topic shortly, but I saw this one guy on TikTok recently saying, "Yo, what's up with people, man? How come more people are not starting general contracting businesses? I mean, it's just a money maker." And I just thought, this seems like a difficult job. I mean, I could be wrong because I don't have that much knowledge in how all of this stuff works with general contracting, but to me, it just seems like a difficult job. So I wouldn't go ahead and say that you could work a 40-hour-a-week job and start a general contracting business. But can you work a 40-hour-a-week job and start a publishing business? In my opinion, yes. If you are working a 40-hour-a-week job and let's say you got done with your job, you are learning, you're building insights, you're building your personal brand, creating tweets and all that stuff, can you still release one book per month? I think so. You write a couple of chapters after work, and eventually you'll have a bunch of chapters. You could edit it, you could proofread it, you could do all of that by the end of the month, and then you release one new book. Because what a publishing company does is they consistently release books, audience members buy it, and the publishing company generates cash flow, and they aim to get a profit. Can you do a business like that while having a 40-hour week job? In my opinion, yes. So, yes, you can do it, but there's a caveat. It really depends on the business model, which brings me up to a different point. Right now, there's a war that's going on, and I would call this a one sided war. This is where a lot of blue collar workers are making fun of white collar workers. They're always saying, white collar workers talk down to us. What's up with that? If it wasn't for us blue collar workers, white collar workers would not even exist. And I thought, which white collar workers talk down to you guys? From what I've noticed, white collar workers think what blue collar workers does, it's cool. So I have no clue why blue collar workers are so freaking sensitive until I realized that I was wrong in some ways. White collar workers don't directly insult blue collar workers, but they indirectly do it. They'll often, when they're parenting their kid, they'll often say, look, if you don't get a proper education, then you're going to end up like that guy. And the person that they're pointing at is a person that is doing construction. And this is completely fair, in my opinion, where the blue collar workers have the right to get upset. But at the same time, the white collar workers do have the right to share their opinion as well. Because if you are a parent, do you want your kid getting into the trades, the blue collar field, or do you want them to get into a white collar field? I think if you poll different parents from around the US or around the world, I think a staggering amount will say white collar. Why? It's because with white collar, you're not working with your hands that much. You're working with your brain. And this is not always seen as a macho thing by a lot of blue collar workers. A lot of blue collar workers are saying, well, you're just sitting at your desk all day. I mean, you don't do half the amount of work that I do. And the white collar workers, they just don't know how to defend themselves. A lot of the white collar workers nowadays, they're carrying themselves in such an embarrassing sort of way. A lot of them are getting on TikTok crying, saying, yeah, I don't do anything. I just make a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. The blue collar workers, they deserve a lot of the recognition. I think, dude, why are you behaving like this? No company will just randomly pay a person $100,000. Even if you don't think you are doing valuable stuff, you are. You just need to understand and be able to articulate yourself better in this regards. If you are only making Excel spreadsheets, this is easy for you right now, but is it easy for your manager? The one who is gathering these insights that your Excel data sheets are providing and presenting it to different stakeholders. You are providing a value. And what you need to understand, white collar workers and blue collar workers, is that it's not this or that, it's this and that. We work in a continuous sort of way. There was this one guy, the guy who made ChatGPT or is working on it, that Sam Altman guy, and he was talking about how as ChatGPT is growing, he is having to build a lot of data centers. And these data centers are gargantuan and it needs a lot of construction. So if you think about it, ChatGPT, it initially is a mental project. There has to be a guy who is doing thought experiments, creating this idea. Hey, there should be this smart AI that is capable of answering any question out there. So it's a white collar task in the beginning stages. It is something that is initially outsourced. There are different data centers that ChatGPT is initially relying on. And then what's happening is this thing is growing and growing. And ChatGPT says, hey, we need to create our own data centers. So now they hire construction workers, AKA the blue collar workers. So a white collar thought led to blue collar activities. And as the blue collar activities are complete, now the white collar thought, AKA ChatGPT 5, is capable of flourishing. So this is what you need to understand. When you have the full perspective, it's not just this or that. White collar workers need blue collar workers, and blue collar workers need white collar workers. So that is something that is a fact. And in my opinion, if I'm a parent, I am absolutely going to tell my kids to pursue white collar, not blue collar. And I think if you even work in blue collar, the entire purpose of your job is to eventually graduate to white collar. So if you are someone who's working in the fields of construction, eventually, let's say 15 years in, you should eventually find a way to work in a white collar sort of way. Why? It's because your body cannot handle the pressures of being a construction worker forever. So eventually, what you need to do is you need to manage the construction workers. And this is where I kind of understand why a lot of white collar workers and blue collar workers fight. It's because kids are fighting to be white collar workers, but the younger generation is not fighting to be blue collar workers. And if you think about it, the younger generation would do a great job in a blue collar field. It's because they have a very important thing: energy. When you are 18 to 21 years old, you are a sponge. If people are telling you exactly what to do, how to do your job, and you're just executing the orders, then you have the energy to do so. Versus a 45-year-old who's been in this industry for 28 years, his body is breaking down and he just doesn't want to do it. He'll do it, but he'll half ass it. It's not a good look. So a lot of these 45-year-olds technically should be white collaring their blue collar jobs, and the younger generation should be actually executing the blue collar jobs. But the unfortunate thing is that there's not enough incentive. There was a period when I was actually doing a blue collar like role. I was doing CNC work. And during this process, I recall I was burning roughly 3,200 to 3,500 calories every single day. And this required a lot of physical work because you had to move fixtures around, you had to change tools, your palms were hurting, you're walking left and right from these different CNCs, and you have to wear steel toed boots. It's just a big, long process. And what's annoying is that a lot of the blue collar workers within this company, they didn't respect people who did CNC as real blue collar workers. They're like, ah, bro, you're not the real deal. So despite you dealing with physical pain, you're still getting disrespected by your coworkers. This is something that happens to a lot of these blue collar like atmospheres. And a lot of these people that you're working with, they could be rude. They could be nice too, where you'll see in blue collar spaces, the fist bump is seen as sacred. When someone fist bumps you, that means, hey, I see you a lot. Even though we don't converse, I see you a lot. You are now in my radar, and now, due to being in my radar, you are my friend. That's just how it works in blue collar jobs. But the people that are training you, since they're not getting paid that much, and since in blue collar jobs, it's all about the numbers, they're stressed out. So their dark emotions are spilling over to you. Why would a young guy who has all this ambition want to put themselves in this environment where they're barely getting paid? They're getting paid what, $21 an hour? The incentive supposedly is if you work overtime. Now, if you are doing 40 hours of work and it's physical activity, do you really want to work overtime? A lot of people will say no. But if you actually work in these blue collar spaces, you will see they thrive in overtime. After working the 40 hours, now they want to work 50. They want to work 60 hours because that's when the overtime pay comes in. But that's still not that much incentive. What's 21 times 1.5? Whatever that is the overtime pay. You get a if you're making $21 after you get deducted with 401k and all of that, you're making roughly 670 a week. Now, with overtime, if you're adding it up to 45 to 60 hours, you may be making 800 to maybe a band, maybe over $1,000, depending how many hours you work. That's still not that much incentive, in my opinion. That's nothing. With white collar work, you could make 85K just coming out of college. So, what's the incentive? You're putting your body in this harm's way. You're not always getting props from your peers. You're barely getting paid. The only incentive to get paid is you work more. And the short term thinkers are saying, well, that's the strategy. You just work overtime. Working overtime is a great way to get yourself out of a situation. If you don't make that much money and let's say you're behind rent, yes, you work overtime then to get yourself out of this bad predicament. But overtime should never be a strategy where you are relying on overtime in order to progress in your career. It should never be the strategy. Even in white collar work, a lot of white collar jobs have a blue collar like feel to it. Call center jobs. In my opinion, Call center jobs are the blue collar jobs of white collar jobs. Let that hit you. Call center jobs are the blue collar jobs of white collar jobs because you are dealing with a lot of physical labor. You are talking, right? And as you are talking, you're dealing with all these objections from different ways. You're dealing with rude customers. And as you're dealing with these rude customers, you just have to deal with it. And you have to have your thoughts go from one to another to another. You have to be able to adjust on the fly. For what? 18 bucks an hour? I mean, that's embarrassing. All these jobs, it will get you out of a situation, but you never want to make that the target. Sales jobs are jobs that I respect when people do it. When someone is capable of selling, I have a lot of respect for them, but I just can't do it. There was actually this one period of my life that I completely forgot about until recently when someone called me and they were trying to sell me insurance. For whatever reason, they got my information, and as they were trying to pitch me, I could have sworn I recognized the guy's voice. And as I started to interpret whether or not I recognized this guy's voice, it took me down memory lane. Roughly 2 to 3 years ago, I got my insurance license where I was capable of selling insurance to different groups of people. My main target were wealthy entrepreneurs who didn't have a company to utilize their insurance plan, so they could use my company's insurance plan. We were looking for wealthy individuals, contractors, realtors, etc. And I just remember walking into that sales environment, and it was one of the most unique things that I ever seen. These people, they're wearing suits. They're always energetic. They have this growth mindset. I recall when I first started, my boss, he came to me and he said, "Hey, Arman, I need you to come in 1 to 2 hours earlier." I asked him why. He said, "Well, early on, we have a thing called role playing sessions where we go in and we are handling objections. So, what you need to do is you need to understand your script inside and out. And when we are there in the morning, we are going to test you to see how well you know your script. As you are trying to go through your script, there's going to be one of your coworkers, the other salesman, who's creating objections. And you need to find creative ways to navigate around those objections. Doesn't that sound fun?" I thought, hell no, dude. I don't want to do that. I don't want to come in early and have to deal with all these objections. So with sales jobs, you can't really ever be sleepy. You always have to be alert. There's always these meetings going on. You always have to deal with objections. You always have to keep on dialing, dialing, dialing. So I eventually went to one of these early meetings and I was super nervous because I didn't know my script like that. Someone asked, "Any volunteers?" And my boss volunteered me. So now I pull out my script. I'm trying to read it. I'm reading it in a very uncomfortable voice. And the other person, he just creating objection after objection. And I'm finding different ways to navigate around it. "Oh, you don't want it because it's too expensive." And I'm supposed to have these other things memorized where whenever there's an objection, I know how to rebut that. Because there's a lot of information that you need to sift through. And I said, "Oh, well, it's too expensive." And I'm just saying, because I didn't remember the other information that I was supposed to learn. So after all that thing was done, everyone's looking at me kind of embarrassed for me. I'm embarrassed at myself. And then this salesman, he's critiquing me, says, "Armani, you got to deliver this with confidence. You need to understand your information. I know you're only 4 days in, but you need to memorize it." I said, "Okay." So that day, I had to dial at least 100 calls. And a lot of people, they don't pick up. A lot of people, they are saying, "What the F do you want?" And a lot of people, they are teetering. It's as though they think they want the product, but they really don't. They're giving you false hope, and then they abruptly hang up on you. You call back, and they're not picking up. This is what they're dealing with. And this was something that I couldn't deal with. The thing with these sales jobs is that they are always in growth mode. They are always attending these conferences. They are always constructively criticizing each other. They are always dressing in suits. And that just wasn't me. Some of the top performers, they were making 250K a year. And the newbies would often sit with the high performers to get motivated. But it just was not for me. One of the top performers, her and I, one day we were talking, and she was supposed to be the team lead. And she was asking me what my goals were. And I wanted to say it in a politically correct sort of way. And she said, Arman, you could just say that you want to make more money. And I said, oh, I didn't want to say it like that because I thought I was supposed to give one of these metaphysical answers. She said, no, do you just want to make more money? I said, yes. She wrote it down. And she said, that was the exact reason that I came here. And her name was Anais. She was one of the top performers, really great at her job, and she would always be a top performer. And I asked her what her secret was. She said the first year or two, she did not do a great job, but the company did not give up on her. Where with a lot of sales jobs, they will often give up on you. With her, they didn't give up. And that motivated her to do great in her third and fourth year. She crushed it. She started to figure out her own process. She started to say, the more that you invest in your business, Arman, the more the sales business will invest in you. You will eventually figure it out. The thing with the sales script is that right now you hate it, but eventually you are going to keep on reading it, reading it, reading it, performing it, performing it, performing it, and you're going to know this so freaking well. The first bunch of times you're only going to get through one line before the other person hangs up on you, and then later on you're going to be able to get through two lines, and you will notice that you will consistently get through those two lines before they hang up on you, but at least you're making progress. As more time goes on by, you're going to be able to get through a paragraph, two paragraphs. You're going to be able to deal with the objections super smoothly. And that is how you are going to rise in this company. And then she told me a very important piece of information that would eventually sway my decision. She said, Arman, with sales, you are always starting over. Last month, I generated over $500,000 worth of business for the company. And this month, I'm just starting over because I still haven't gotten a sale. And if I don't get any sales for this month, then my boss is going to be breathing down my neck. So you have to have that perspective with sales. People are always growing because they have no other choice. And as I heard this, I felt a little inspired, but at the same time, I had clarity. I knew that this was not something that I wanted to do. I respect salespeople, but I would never want to be in sales because the thing with sales is that a lot of the times on TikTok and these YouTube videos, they try to glamorize it. They show you the output, but what they don't show you is the dark stuff. I mean, there are so many people just cursing you out. There are so many people hanging up on you. There are so many people giving you false hope. There are so many times that you have to log into work early. And this is one of the times that I learned that you need whiny coworkers. Because within this insurance company that I work for, everyone just wanted to keep on working and working. There were people who said, hey, during Thanksgiving, we should be working some more because there was some sort of insurance plan going on around Thanksgiving or Christmas break. Why not work for both? And these people were suggesting bringing sleeping bags so they could just bring their sleeping bags and work, work, work. And there were no whiny employees. If you were a whiny employee in that particular company, you would get fired. But whiny employees come in clutch for companies, mainly because whenever people are suggesting, "Hey, let's bring our sleeping bags and go to sleep at work," the whiny employees they say, "How about we don't do that?" And due to that pushback, now it's creating some resistance to this silly idea. With sales, it's not really a silly idea. If you work a 40-hour week job and you get predictable payments coming in, then you don't have to worry about something like this. But if your job is completely based on performance, then doing sleeping bags, calling, eating pizza at work, it seems like the smart thing to do. Sales was never going to be for me. I would rather make $150,000 in an engineering position rather than $400,000 in a sales job. Because with that $400,000, it's not always guaranteed. With sales, you could sometimes make $400,000. You can make $25,000. It's nothing's guaranteed, and sometimes you need guarantees in life, especially if you are building your own business. Now, if sales is your only business, then I get it. I mean, there are sales professionals out there, but sales professionals, just like anything, they are trying to market a life to you that doesn't fully represent what life really is like within that field. You're going to have to be cold calling a lot. If you get warm leads, that's good, but you may sometimes have to pay for those leads. People don't talk about all of this. How salespeople recruit is that they will fire off a bunch of LinkedIn positions, Indeed positions, Monsters positions. There are different people that will see these positions. They will see, wow, base salary of $85,000. I'm employed right now. How about I go there? Then they go, then they see they're not getting interviewed by themselves. There are a bunch of other people getting interviewed at the same time. A bunch of people are in this similar conference room. There's a salesman that goes up and they start to talk about all these big checks that they got, how they were one time struggling and now how they are making all this money. And this big group of people, they're just looking at all those dollar bills. These salesmen, they're saying, this check right here is from a guy who just started 2 weeks ago. So, someone in this room right now, 2 weeks from now, you could also be getting a check like this. The check is for $7,000. What they're showing you are the outliers. Now, I'm not trying to unmotivate you, by the way. If you're someone that started a sales job, I highly recommend you give 110%. But I do know people that think that this $7,000 is going to be for them. That's not always the case. When I was working in the insurance company, I was talking to different people to see how much they make. And one thing with sales positions is that people are super transparent with how much they make, even if they don't make that much. I would always go to the low performers too and ask, hey, how much are you making? And they'll say something like, bro, I made 150 bucks this week. 150 bucks? And they'll try to justify it. Yeah, dude, it's just because I began this recently and eventually I'm going to get better like Ananias. So right now, for this time being, they're making $150 a week, if even, and then they're going to hopefully make more money. That's not guaranteed. So they better have money saved because they're going to be going through their savings account for some time. This is stuff they don't bring up to you in these mass presentations. Sales jobs, they're not bad, but you have to understand what type of personality you are. I have a lot of respect for salespeople because they are the master communicators. They understand how to deal with difficult personalities. And the people who have made their career in sales are people that understand how human beings work better than the human beings themselves. A realtor, for example, understands me better than I know myself. They know what I like, what I don't like, what my fears are, what my budget is, and so much more. These salespeople deserve a lot of praise, just like a lot of blue workers deserve a lot of praise. Now, even though they deserve praise, you want to be very wary about going into that industry because I personally think there's more dark than light. If you want to get paid more money, it really depends on the industry that you enter. There was one time that I was talking to one of my buddies, and when we were talking, I noticed that we had very similar, if not the exact same positions. And as we were talking, eventually we started to break down how much we made. And I kid you not, I almost made 3 times more than what this guy made. And it was shocking to me because we virtually did the same thing. And you could even make the argument that he did more things because his job had a little bit more manual labor, while my job was completely mental based or communication skills based. And I thought, why do I make so much more money than him? Then he told me he works at a school. I thought, a school? What are you going to do at a school? So I was doing IT in a big bank. He was doing IT in a school. We were doing pretty much the same positions. But in this situation, the industries are so freaking different that I could accidentally make a lot of money while he could try his whole life and he won't make that much money at all. Because schools barely have money to pay their teachers. What makes you think that they're going to pay their IT department? A lot of them think the IT department is a complete waste of time. What makes you think that they are going to pay you? So this guy, doesn't matter how much he networks, how much he shakes the right hands with the right people within that industry, he is never going to really get paid like that. So you can't outgrow your industry. When you are thinking about switching companies, you want to ask yourself, is this a growing industry or not? And it's not always about the industries. Sometimes it's about common sense. I mean, you working as an IT professional in a middle school, do you really think you're going to get paid six figures? Very unlikely. So you need to be realistic. If you want to get paid more money, for certain people, getting paid a lot of money is really not something that they're prioritizing. But one thing that I've been learning more as I have hit my 30s is that you need money in order to be social, because the world is expensive nowadays. There are so many things that just cost money that before it didn't cost money. I recall there was this one time I go to Tampa and they were charging me to walk into a restaurant just to book it. I thought I didn't even order a meal yet, and you're still charging me. And that's how it works. Eventually, parks aren't even going to be free. You're going to have to pay to go into a park. So you need money. And one thing that I notice with my friends that don't make that much money is that small decisions become very painful decisions. I'm very wary to invite them to anything because if it costs $100, for me, I don't think of it, oh man, it costs $100. I think of it in terms of the experience. But if I bring this up to someone who makes, let's say, 35K a year, and I say, hey, do you want to go to this basketball game? Do you want to go to this concert? Do you want to do this activity? The first thing they're going to ask is how much. And if I say $100, they're not thinking in terms of experience. They're thinking in terms of the $100. $100 could be 2.5 weeks of groceries. $100 could be a couple of days worth of gas. $100 could be something that is funded to that AC that broke recently. That's how they view the $100. And eventually, if you always feel resistance when inviting them to something because they're perceiving the money prior to the experience, you may be hesitant to invite them to anything at all. So, people often talk about how making more money can lead to better investment opportunities and a better quality of life for you. But people don't talk about how important money is to maintaining social relationships. The more money that you have, the more that you can think in terms of experiences rather than the cost. If you're being too cheap, that's not a good thing either. I know people that make over 170K, but if you ask them, hey, do you want to do this particular event? The first thing they're asking is, well, how much does it cost? You tell them $50. $50 is nothing to this guy, but they are so freaking cheap. And this is why I think you should invest, but you don't want to be one of those people that make investing your entire personality. Certain people make investing their entire personality where they can talk about it left and right for a long freaking time. They will talk about their Vanguard accounts, their Bitcoin accounts, the different real estate investments that they have, and their entire personality is investing. Any free money that they get, they will put it into investment accounts. And they have perverted their mind to a point where they think if I spend $100 to go to this basketball game, I could have spent that $100 into my investment account and I could have made money on that. I think, dude, not everything in life always has to be an investment decision. Certain things in life, you just need to enjoy. You just need to be in the present moment. That's why I always have liquid cash on me. Yes, I do invest my money. I automate a lot of that. So every year I will get a lump sum amount of money and I will just put it into a VTSAX Vanguard account. So now I don't have to think about that. And I have a lot of money that I keep liquid. These investment people, they're like, well, why would you do something like that? I mean, you're not gaining any returns on that. It's getting corroded by inflation. That's all they think about. I think, dude, me having liquid cash in my bank account, when I look at it, I feel good. That confidence allows me to contextualize my everyday experiences at work, at my business, so I can make more money, so I can invest more money every year. So you gotta focus on it like that. And besides that, dude, I like having liquid cash on me so I don't always have to worry about going to certain experiences. If I want to go, then I will go. Unless it's super expensive to a point where I can't afford it. I know I can't afford it, where after I paid for it, I'm just thinking, man, that costs so much. For example, this microphone, it didn't cost that much. It cost 150 to 200 bucks. I actually completely forgot. If it cost 300 bucks, I forgot. It's a Shure microphone. Whenever I forget how much it cost, then I know for a fact I couldn't afford it. But if I always remember how much it cost, then I know for a fact during that stage of my life, I couldn't afford it. If it's bothering me, if I'm just thinking about the price more than the actual experience, then I know for a fact I can't afford it. I was going on Reddit recently, and there was a couple that said they spent $25,000 on their honeymoon. Just hearing $25,000, I don't care how great the experience is. All I'm going to be thinking about is the $25,000. So this is a situation where I know for a fact I can't afford it. But if someone said $5,000 for a honeymoon, $7,000 even, I wouldn't bat an eye. So that's when I know that I can afford it. So I have a subjective way to determining whether or not I could afford something. Not everyone should do that. A lot of people should run the numbers, but there is a beauty to life where you're not always running the numbers. You want to eventually make money to a point where running the numbers is just a bonus step you could take, but you don't have to take. For example, one thing I don't sacrifice is food. Okay. Where I don't really care how much the food costs. Since I eat once a day, I will always spend whatever I need to have to spend on food. Now, if I'm always pulling out my calculator and seeing if I could afford it for the day, that's not the proper way to live. It's better to focus on the big picture first. What is a rough amount of cash flow I need per month? Not gross, because gross could be whatever, but eventually the government deducts your taxes and you can't spend the money that you gave to taxes. You can't spend the money that you put in your 401k. You need to focus on what is liquid hitting your bank account every month. Once you have that target, then you can start to chill a little bit more. Life doesn't always have to be, oh man, I can't afford it, or can I afford it? Let me run the numbers, let me invest. These people that invest too much of their money and have made their personalities investing, they're very annoying. They don't take any risks at all. They always act like they know more about money than you. They're always fighting for this mythical thing called net worth, which is a random number that you could just pull out of your butt. They become really annoying. And you will lose a lot of friends to this. Where whenever I talk to friends, if they talk a little too much about their investments and about their money, it eventually just becomes an annoying thing. It's very similar to the guy who just started a business that is trying to convince all their friends who work a job to quit their jobs to start a business. It's the same level of annoyingness where the people who have a job, they're like, dude, how about you first become successful in your business before you tell me how to live my life? And then, even if you become successful at your business, are you to tell me that I should start a business too? What if I don't want to start a business? So, this is something that is equally as annoying when investing is your personality. My philosophy is you do it in lump sum. Eventually, when you have a good amount of money, just get it and just put it into the account and don't even look at the account. I know some people that put a bunch of money into their Vanguard account and they just look at it every day. When it goes up, they feel good. When it goes down, they feel bad. You want to delete the account, you don't want to even look at the account until a couple of years goes on by and one day you wonder, I wonder how much money is in that account. That actually happened to me. In 2019, I recall I got this $10,000 bonus and I just said, you know what? I don't need that money right now. How about I open a Vanguard account and I put it in there? So I put $10,000 into this Vanguard account. It was a VTSAX fund. So the money got distributed in various different markets. It was an index fund. And I completely forgot about it. In 2019, I don't think Vanguard even had the Vanguard app. I never went on the website. Heck, I even forgot my password after a certain point. Years and years goes on by, and one day I just got curious. Hey, didn't I put 10K in that Vanguard account one time? And I go inside, and that money has now become $14,000. So I gained $4,000 by not doing anything, not doing a single thing. And that is how you properly invest. You put away money and then you completely forget. You don't download the apps, you don't keep checking it on the websites, you completely forget about it. And then next year, you do the same thing. You put another lump sum amount of cash into the investment account and then you just forget about it. And now you are investing, you are being wise, you are being strategic for the future, but you are not sacrificing your day to day life. The people who make investing their entire personality, they sacrifice their day to day life. They can't enjoy anything in the present day moment because all they're thinking about is, I just wonder how much money I'll have when I'm 55, when I'm 60. And unfortunately, the dark truth is that some of them die before they even access that money. They get in a car accident, they drown, they die from natural causes. This is a dark thing to say, but it does happen. So you're s- saving all this time for this mythical moment in your life, and you never even reach this mythical moment in your life. How is that a win? So, in my opinion, you get a lump sum amount of money, you put it in an index fund. You could even do cryptocurrency. I always put some money in a cryptocurrency as well. I do Bitcoin. Then you just forget about it. Then you repeat the process next year, next year, next year. And then you are enjoying your present day moment. One of my favorite books of all time is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And the main important thing that he said was the only thing that you have is today, the present moment. Yesterday, it's already gone. Yesterday, it's simply memories at this point. You could recall the memories, but it's gone. And the future, it has not arrived. So why are you going to worry about the future so much? A lot of the times when we worry about the future, our worries are way worse than what actually happens. There have been time and time again these different situations where I'm thinking this event is going to go so bad. And then once I'm at the event, it goes so freaking smooth. So why are you thinking that much about the future? The only time you should be thinking about the future is grand thoughts about how you made it, how you are consistently making it. Visualize that into existence. But then experience the present moment for what it is. And to experience the present moment with the utmost joy, you do need money. So if you are low in your money right now, you definitely want to find different ways in order to stack your bread up. Do Uber Eats, do DoorDash, do something, man. And if you are following the Armani Talks YouTube channel, what I teach you is something unique. I teach you how to use words to earn money. All these books right here, they generate me cash every month. Every month. I basically created words, published it, and nowadays those words are generating dollar bills. That's how simple it is. So if you follow the Armani Talks YouTube channel, I teach you how to use communication skills in an ethical way in order to provide value for other people and at the same time collect some value for yourself. There's no honor in just creating value for other people and you're saying, well, I don't need any of that. There is no honor in that. Entrepreneurship does not have to be difficult. You create value, you communicate value, and you capture value. That's how simple it is. So, if you enjoyed today's talk and you want to get more insights like this into communication skills, there are a couple of ways to reach me. One way is obviously through the YouTube channel. Every single day, I release a new video that deals with public speaking, social skills, emotional intelligence, and much more. You could either watch me or you could listen to me via podcast. Same thing. I release content that deals with public speaking, social skills, emotional intelligence, and much more. The cool thing is that the YouTube channel content and the podcast content are completely different. So you could follow me on both and get brand new insights every single day. There's content, the free ones, and then there's also the books, the paid ones. The books are available on Amazon, Audible, Gumroad, Google Books, Apple Books, and much more. Check out my ideas. There are journals that I have, there are books on mindset, communication skills, 101 short stories series, and much more. If you want to see everything consolidated in one area, you can go on ArmaniTalks.com. ArmaniTalks.com will have my YouTube channel, will have my podcast, will have my blog, will have the books. And if you really, really want to become a super fan, be sure to hit that newsletter button. When you enter your email for the newsletter, every single day you will get a short insight in your inbox on how to level up your way with words. Thank you very much for joining me, and be sure to check out ArmaniTalks.com to stay updated. Thank you, and I'll catch you next time.